Hey there, this video is about lighting in Katana. So for working with lights in Katana, we use a super tool node called Gaffer 3. Let me create one of those and add them to my graph. Cool. So inside this node, we create lights. We can set their parameters, colors, intensities, all the sorts of things we normally do with our lights, and we can move them, place them around the scene, and use them to light our scene. So in this node, we can also group up these lights with light rigs, which allows us to move a whole light system around and give a common transform to lots of lights. It also lets us export the rig as a rig file, a .rig file, so you can share lighting setups with other lighters, maybe on your team, but on the forums as well, maybe. So we can make many lights in here if we like, and it adds them to our scene. So it adds them under the location specified up here. So it's in LGT, Gaffer, and then our lights are there, which we can name lights as well. We might have a blue light, and you can color that. So some of the attributes are in this easy pane here, and other ones are in the material tab. So this is where you'll see all the PR Man light shader attributes. You tab that down in the material tab, and you've got all the normal light settings for RenderMan. So I can, you'll see that when I select them here, it's not actually selecting them over here as well, so I can't easily find them in the viewport. Well, there he is. But one of the features I like in Gaffer 3 is sync selection. I like to set this. So if we set this to in out, when I select one here, it will select it in the scene graph and in turn in the viewport as well. And I can change it and rotate it around or do the normal types of things. We haven't done too much viewer stuff yet. The viewer is controls you'd expect. Q is your select tool, W is your move, E is your rotate, and R is your scale. If it's a light that allows scale, like a quad light lets you, these ones don't. So that just makes it easier to select sync selection. So we can, it's like a light lister, so we can do lots of things in this. We can mute lights, we can solo lights, so only those ones are available. So it's quite good for debugging, you know, or what's causing the issue, or which light is it, because you can go through them individually really quickly. So I'm going to create a light, add it to our scene, and start setting it up. I'll just delete these lights. Of course I did something when I wasn't recording, I'll just show you. I've added an extra camera to the scene. So I've got an Alembic file here. This is my actual shot cam, which that one's baked into the Alembic. You can't move that for obvious reasons. You don't want to move your shot cam. But sometimes you want a camera that can look around the scene a bit, just for checking things are working and all that. So I like to create a camera within Katana. They don't all have to come from Alembics. There's this camera create node. That's what it's called, cam create or CC, and that'll allow you to create a camera in the scene. So you'll see now I've got test camera and I've got shot cam cutter. That was from my Alembic. It used to be a Caterpillar, if you're wondering why that is. With the camera create, I give it a name. I just called it test camera, and you've got FOV and all the usual suspects for cameras. But once that's merged in, I can select it for rendering. I just thought I'd point that out in case anyone's building this graph with the videos. So let's create and apply a dome HDR light to our scene. Okay, so I'm going to go right click, add PXR dome light, and you'll see something's already happened in the viewport. We've got a background there, and I'm just going to find, if we come to the material tab, we've got a color map slot here. Select those and go browse. I highly recommend setting up favorites in your file browser windows that take you straight to your lighting libraries for external AES or HDRI files. It's worth setting all that stuff up. So I'll just select one I've converted to RenderMan here and place it in. You'll see we can see it in the viewport. This is relatively new in RenderMan 21.3. If you're on an older version of Katana or RenderMan, you may not get the image in the viewport, but don't stress, it'll still work. The viewport's basic in Katana, so it's just really for placing lights and checking things are loaded. It is to be improved, I'm sure, in the near future, but yeah, for now it does its job. So yeah, we can see that a little bit in the viewport, and we now have a light in the scene. So if we were to start rendering this, we'd be good to go. Okay, so I'm going to just quickly set up a test render scene to jump ahead a little bit, go off topic a tiny bit, just so we can see the light changes happening in the viewport. To get a render out, we can actually right click on any node and do a preview or a live render in Katana, but we still need a few things set, otherwise we'll get an error. Like if I was just going to render from this point in the graph, if we look at our render log, it instantly throws an error because it can't find a camera in the scene. The default camera that the renderer the renderer looks for, if you don't tell it one, is just a camera called camera. And if it can't find camera in the scene, it throws that error. Nice and easy. But we need the render settings node, RS, tab RS, click. We need a render settings node just to tell it which camera we're rendering from. Middle mouse, my test camera over, or you could use your shot cam, whatever. This node also says which renderer we're using and the resolution and whatnot. So I'm just going to put a small basic resolution in here. And the other setting we need is adjust screen window. By default, for some reason, Katana renders square. You need to set adjust width to match resolution, and then you'll see this happen. If you don't see this happen, make sure you're viewing one of the bottom nodes. If we view above this render setting node, you'll see your camera change. So that was a bit confusing for me when I first started with Katana. So yeah, make sure you're viewing and you've got this guy set here, and then it should work fine for you. So we've got the light in the scene now, the dome light, and we've got enough attributes to get a render out. So I'm going to right click, go live render, and if your render is all installed properly, this will all work fine. So in the render log, make sure you've got your render log in a decent place on the UI. We haven't used that yet, but it's going to spam out all the info of what's happening and frame up on that. And it's going to start rendering our scene. Just have to load up my visibility pins. Okay, and load up our camera. I'm on the test camera. So just quickly, we need to, if we want to use live rendering, you'll see that it's not updating. I'm moving the test camera and it's not updating. So live rendering is like IPR, if you've used IPR in other software. If with Katana, you tell the live render which objects to update and which ones not to update. So that's a handy feature. And that's this list here, this little blue live render updates. Updates are only sent for included objects. And you can shift click on a group and that will make all the children update. So then we can see that going. So there's more about rendering later, so we'll come back to that. Okay, so our scene here, you can see our materials working and we've got our HDR light in the scene, and we can tweak and adjust that in the material tab here if we want to choose different lights or whatnot. So Gaffer 3 also has some great features for working on shots and collaboration, like multiple shots and collaborating with other people. So let's imagine we have many shots for a scene. We could set up a base light render for the scene. We might get the senior or the supervisor to decide on the overall look for the scene, pick the HDR that matches or something, and we might call that base lighting. So this is like the given lighting for all the shots. And we might have a sunlight as well that we can control. Let's just chuck one in there. Oh, not a distant light, sorry, delete. A distant light. And then we can find that. I'll just go to my perspective cam quickly, press F, Zoom back a bit. Okay, I'm just going to angle that down, press E, rotate that down. I've got my base lighting, so let's say that's the core lighting for the shot. And then as the cameras change and cut around, we might have some fill lights or things, or whatever the artists need, whatever the lighting artists need to make that shot work. But they can do that in different Gaffer 3 nodes. So I can make another Gaffer 3 here, connect that in, and I could call this, let's just, to help with the example, let's just call this shot 2, shot 02 fill lights. Man, let's imagine we just needed some more fill lights up the back or something. So I can add those here. Let's say we just have a sphere light, and we'll find those sphere lights. It now comes up here. It's placing at the origin every time over there. So let's say we've got our sphere light for extra fill or whatever, and we can add that in. We can deactivate it to turn it on and off, test it, or we can do that here as well to mute as it's going. I probably need to restart the render to see all these new lights. It's the slash key underneath backspace will restart the last render going. But anyway, the point is we can add separate Gaffer 3 nodes together to make changes sort of non-destructively, not treading on other people's work maybe, or just having a little bit of a workflow or a lighting pipeline within your team. So not only that, it gets cooler. Let's say shot 3 happens, but the fill, and you want to use the same fill. Let's say shot fills from a similar direction or whatever. Shot 3 is from a similar direction. 03, fill, edit. So this guy here, what we can do with nodes, with Gaffer 3 nodes, is we can hit this little cogwheel up here. I'll zoom in because it's a bit small. This guy, little cogwheel, and you can go show incoming scene. So what this does is it shows us all the lights in the whole Katana graph in a list, but they're in italics. So if we want to edit these, this is our fill light we had. I can right click and go adopt for editing. So that now highlights and isn't grayed out anymore, and we can do an edit. Let's say we want a much higher intensity on that, and we need a slightly different color or something. We can edit this all we want, and that's now edited. But you'll see up in the fill light here, it's still normal. So that's a non-destructive change someone's done that can be disabled or turned on and off when they need it. If, for example, you didn't want that change and you just wanted to revert it back, you could go right click, delete edit package. So all that does is delete the changes that you made and put it back. So it's a handy little collaboration tool. So instead of making one big long gaffer, you can break these up into multiple. And when we look at collaboration in Katana, I'm going to show how you might be itching to find out how to work across multiple shots, like in my other scene over here where we broke it out. We'll do that in a bit when we go through, but this is an extension on that. We can work with multiple shots and inherent the upcoming scene and just tweak it per shot, so you can do many shots in one graph. It's amazing stuff. So this lets you just like A/B changes as well. So on a more maybe a bit more destructible level, whenever I start any major change to the lighting look of a scene, I often just copy paste the base lighting just over here, just move it off screen a bit, just so if worst comes to worst, you completely botch it, your ID didn't work, you can just delete it or press X, that detaches it from the cables, and you can put the old one back in there. So a little bit more maybe dodgy, you might say, but copy pasting nodes there just before cleaning up for submission maybe is something you'll do. So we're going to come back to Gaffer 3. I want to show you how to work with those multiple shots and what's called graph state variables. So if that's what you were coming to this video to see, jump ahead to the graph state variables video. But that's it for now on Gaffer 3 and placing lights in Katana. There's obviously a lot more to lighting, but there's a lot of RenderMan tutorials out there, a great community, and lots of info on general lighting out there. So that's there's other places for that. So as far as placing lights in Katana and moving them around, that's a whole bunch of stuff there. So hopefully you'll be able to use that as a base and get some really nice lighting in your own scenes. So thanks for watching. The next video is on more stuff for setting up rendering in Katana. Awesome. See you later.